One of the most heavily criticised aspects of the first Assassin's Creed is its lack of stuff to do, probably a criticism that ruined video games for the rest of time. Open worlds are known for having lots and lots of stuff, that's kind of their whole point. Collectibles, side missions, tall buildings that defog the map, the same bandit camp 30 times over in one region of the 50 regions of the country-sized world map. Who the fuck enjoys this? Anything to waste your time. Crimes that can actually be traced back to Ubisoft. It's not often you get open worlds these days that are built to be worth playing. They're often more a time sink than anything else, especially from the studio that pioneered this approach to open world design. But that first Assassin's Creed doesn't have anything. Okay, it has some things, but it doesn't have side missions, it doesn't have stuff to do, it doesn't have checklists or tasks or organic world events or dungeons or loot. The only things outside of the literal main path that the game offers are viewpoints, which are technically optional, but they defog the map and point to objectives that further the main story, small events to help citizens, which are helpful parts of your mission planning that provide you with either blend groups or chase breakers, both of which are used to aid you as you move around, usually back into blend after assassinating a major target, and flags. They don't do anything, they are just flags. People will talk about remaking this game, about how they could finally fix it and add side missions and more things to do and optional objectives and all the normal things you expect from modern open world games, because Assassin's Creed 1 got it wrong. The game is broken because they forgot to add stuff to their world. But that's wrong. Those things are missing the point of what the open world exists for in the first Assassin's Creed, the thematic significance, both to the story and to the character you are playing as. This world isn't for you. Something that has always fascinated me in video games is the story told by the set dressing. The same way mise-en-scène exists for theatre or film, background objects, costumes, and sets to tell stories of their own or convey context or meaning to an audience through the subconscious, video games do as well. But the key difference is interactivity. We can look at things from different angles, we can manipulate the scene itself. Different games do this to different extents and in different ways. Half-Life allows for full physics-based interactivity. Life is Strange allows you to inquire about objects littering a given scene. Skyrim lets you put buckets on the heads of merchants so they can't see you stealing all of their money. Open world games, though, take this a step further. No longer do you have the scene, you have the world. A whole world that exists for the player to lose themselves in, to complete quests, to learn about the space you're moving through at your own pace, with so many optional stories and characters to give you a greater insight into the world building that makes up the story you're experiencing. These worlds are often full and living and incredibly complementary to the main path, and when done well, they are some of the most compelling and unique stories to experience. But there are some games that don't do this. Games whose worlds exist for a different reason, and that are meant to be absorbed in a less conventional way. Worlds that are designed seemingly not mechanically for a player, that are designed for very intentional and specific reasons. Almost to the point you could ask yourself, why is this game open world at all? And by worlds not being designed for the player, I don't mean things like Elden Ring, a world that is hostile and unforgiving, because ultimately the game is open world in service of its content which exists for the player to enjoy. I'm talking about games like Shadow of the Colossus. In Shadow of the Colossus, the player, a young boy, Wanda, is tasked with defeating 16 different colossi, large creatures of unknown origin, to save a young girl, Mono. To get to these colossi though, you have nothing but your sword, which points the way using light, and Agro, your horse. It's up to you to navigate to each colossi around what feels like a gargantuan map filled with nothing. This space is empty, barren. The sky is bright and almost blinding, and the colour of the world seems to be slightly absent. The PS4 remake, shockingly, alters the visuals somewhat and creates a sense of density that I feel alters the general tone somewhat. It doesn't completely kill the game, obviously, but the original is powerful in how it uses its own emptiness. Shadow of the Colossus didn't need to give you an open world, it doesn't serve anything mechanically, there is quite literally nothing to do here, and the ride from one Colossus to another can sometimes be lengthy, but that's the point. Shadow of the Colossus didn't get anything wrong, it didn't forget to populate its open world with quests and objectives and collectibles and NPCs, it omitted them on purpose. In doing so, it creates a stark sense of loneliness, of worry, anxiety, and separation. The only constants are the return to the center of the map, to an unconscious girl who you wish to save, and your horse aggro. It creates a tunnel vision, no distractions, a single-mindedness as you press on in your noble goal, which by the end turns out to be your undoing. The world is bizarre and foreign, and sometimes you can even get lost within it, forgetting which way is which, but in doing so you end up with an even stronger sense of separation. You'll notice structures lost to time, built by who? You'll never know. The fields are sprawling, the bridges are ginormous, the structures don't look like they exist to accommodate someone of your size. You are literally walking in the shadow of the Colossus. The world, in the most literal sense, is not for you. You are an intruder in a land you don't belong. The world doesn't exist for you to explore, you are, in a way, invading. And despite your single-mindedness, the long rides across this world give you time to reflect and to think on what you're doing, on why, on the morality, and on this world. Where even are you? What happened here? You're given enough clues to piece a lot of the story together, and the game wants you to. It wants you to think about it. These are not mindless, empty rides to the objective location where the stuff happens. They are liminal spaces within which the game asks you to simply think. Shadow of the Colossus wouldn't convey the same feeling were it linear, nor if it were populated by video gamey stuff. The game strikes such a chord because of exactly how it exists. The empty space isn't for you, it existed long before you arrived, and it will exist long after you're gone. It exists outside of the realm of video game because it doesn't feel made with a player in mind. It just is, and that's what gives Shadow of the Colossus its power to create an experience. The world itself, as a space, isn't for you, but what it's facilitating, a feeling, using the intentional emptiness, can be. And sure, that's obvious, you might say, and yeah, I agree, it's super obvious that this was intentional. I don't think anyone is ever going to argue that Shadow of the Colossus would be better if it had side quests every 2 to 3 minutes. Although I have found on TikTok some people do, I just have to hope they're 12. But then, why is it that for other games that do the same, create open worlds that, apart from the main story, are empty, people aren't willing to be so generous? People always assume a mistake was made, that they just forgot to put anything in. Maybe it's presentation. Shadow of the Colossus looks, for lack of a better word, artsy. Anyone who plays is aware from the get-go that this isn't a traditional video game. It's doing something different, and you know what you're getting yourself into. All the pieces just fit together in your head and it makes sense. What if, then, you take a game that is more of a traditional open-world video game and apply the same logic? That it's all done on purpose. Mafia 2 is, on the surface, essentially a GTA clone. And I say that with admiration. I miss these types of games. Your Sleeping Dogs, your Saints Row, your Mafia. It feels like they're a dying breed. But what a game like this often conjures in your mind is an image of a sandbox, of mini-games and side missions and tons of stuff to have fun with as you explore a large city built with immaculate detail. Mafia 2 doesn't have side content. It is a whole city with traffic and police that remember your car and clothes shops that you can use or rob. You even have to fill up your car with petrol, but it has no side missions. It has no mini-games, no random events. It only has the main story. And a few collectibles. You don't get it twisted. People love Mafia 2. It's the fan favorite, but people will often criticize its lack of stuff to do. But is stuff what Mafia needs? If Mafia 3 is any indication, the answer is a very stern no, thank you. I believe, however, that Mafia 2 is intentionally empty. That Empire Bay not having side content actually enhances the themes of the story and Vito's own character journey. So, I actually half lied when I said the game doesn't have mini-games or random events. It does, but they're scripted. During the first half of the game, set in 1945, there are two moments that stand out to me. First is helping a woman get her car up and running again after it broke down thanks to the snow. Her husband leaves her stranded, and as the good Samaritan Vito is, he gives her a hand. She thanks him and leaves. It's innocuous and you get no reward for it, and it never comes back up again. The second is when Vito goes to try and get an honest job at the docks. You start stacking boxes, and after a while, the game tells you to call it quits and leave. Vito even says it's a dumb job and he's over it. It's too tedious and not worth the money. Vito doesn't want to be treated like the lowest of the low for even lower pay. You can instead choose to complete the stacking, at least further than the game intends. Eventually you can't go any further, and nothing. You don't get rewarded. You don't even get a trophy. You don't get anything. Nothing happens. These two events stand out as giant blinking lights telling the player this city doesn't care about you, and Vito wants nothing more than to rise above it all. And that's what the story is about rising up the ranks of one of the major crime families of the city, but always to your own ends, not concerning yourself with the common man. You're better than that. You're special. Vito feels beat down by a city that promised him opportunity, and so, almost out of spite, returns to a life of crime to become powerful. It tracks then that of course the city itself becomes nothing more than a means to an end, not a place to get engrossed in or provide missions for Vito. He is incredibly single-minded, and Empire Bay becomes nothing more than a stage for him. He does jobs, he goes to jail, he loses people, he gets rich and buys a house, he loses that house. The city itself has never done anything for him. He's always beaten down. Yet, part of him can't seem to help but come back.
There it is, Empire Bay. Tell the truth. Miss it?
Hey, does a bear shit in the woods? Not like this place ever done me any favors, but anything's better than a foxhole.
The lack of side content works to accentuate the internal struggle of the character we inhabit. Mafia 2 would not be better with side missions and menial tasks and viewpoints and random encounters with people on the sidewalk. It would feel incongruent with the story they're telling. Mafia 2 works so well, it creates such a feeling in players because of how impactful the city is. The player walks the streets and can drive across all of it, but they never get directly involved, because they're above it all. You experience the city on a mechanical level, the way Vito perceives it within his mind. It serves purely function and delivers a coherent, emotional experience in such a beautifully subconscious way. Mafia 2 isn't a perfect game, it's lacking in direction and focus in areas, and the second half often feels rushed, but the conclusion it tries to make is isolation. Vito loses his mother while in jail. He doesn't get to say goodbye. His sister cuts ties despite him doing everything to help her, and in the end, he loses Joe despite his strong bond with Galante. None of what he does, no matter the money he makes or the good he tries to do, the goodwill he earns with high-ranking criminals, he loses everyone, and he ends up alone. Mafia 2 condemns Vito's choices, and it does that through Empire Bay, through this incredibly detailed and atmospheric city that Vito ignores. But the player can choose to see. It allows for both a connection to Vito through its hollowness, but also a sense of dramatic irony, that you are privy to its nooks and crannies and beauty and specificity, and through that, Vito's folly in a way that he is not aware of until it's too late. And Empire Bay would not hold that significance if it was filled with side missions and random encounters and minigames. While making this video, Mafia: The Old Country also came out. I know, I've been working on this for a while, and that game returned to the old formula, a linear story within an open world that can be explored yet doesn't contain busy work and side quests, and I think despite the many flaws Old Country has, full review on my backlog, link in the description, the way it uses its setting is a wonderful breath of fresh air for this genre of game. Sicily is gorgeous, the vibes of driving around are immaculate, but it also works as a very real thematic tether to the story being told. It uses this beautiful countryside as a facade for the destructive force under the surface, being the giant volcano looming over the entire map. It works as an allegory for Enzo's own journey, this wonderful life of freedom and power and riches which is underpinned by domination, control, and servitude. Old Country isn't as strong as Mafia 2 as a game. In many ways it's kind of bad, but how it uses its open world is one of the most remarkable things about it in a time where studios often try to do far too much. The other thing that Mafia 2 does though to isolate the player is through Vito's history with the military. He's a soldier, fought in Sicily during World War II, and so part of his disillusionment with Empire Bay comes from that background, seeing the war, seeing the things nobody should ever see, and then having to get on with regular life. Men like that, especially in that era, could often end up like Vito did, in a life of crime, his only real point of connection to the world being other men who fought in the war. The other avenue, though, for men in that position is the polar opposite: become a part of the closest structure to the military in civilian society. The police. LA Noire isn't so much a detective game as it is an interactive movie where you happen to play as a detective. The cases are railroaded, they're not hard to correctly solve if
solve is even the word you'd use, but it has its merits. The story follows Cole Phelps, an LAPD cop who worked his way up to being a detective in 1947. That date is incredibly important. The game is swimming in the fallout of the Second World War, and America divided, scared, deeply prejudiced. So not really all that different. The backdrop is Los Angeles, a whole host of cases across different desks: traffic, homicide, vice, and arson, all with their own arcs and points to make. But everything always comes back around to one central idea. The game explores what the war created. Cole Phelps himself was a soldier in the Marines, now forced to adjust to a life back home, and so he does the opposite of Vito. He joins the police. He desires structure and focus and purpose, and in many ways, to make up for his failings in Okinawa. But what this does is put us in the shoes of a man who feels ostracized, as many vets can, and especially did in the 1940s. These men were sent off to a world that might as well have been hell itself. They had to become animals to survive, and everyone back home, the government, their families, expected them to just simply fall back into normality. I can't imagine what that feels like. The game has this at its very forefront, that war changes these men. The influx of crime is thanks to the lack of effort in helping these people reintegrate back into society. And Cole is one of them too. Not a criminal, but a changed man. Where some of these criminals fell into madness or made mistakes because of how truly altered their brains had become, Cole tries his best to seek some sort of purpose, to do good, to help people, to live up to his status as war hero, and he eventually crumbles under that self-imposed pressure. But what this means is we play as a man who is very single-minded. Similarly to Vito, Cole has no time for distractions. He lives inside of his own head and has no real ability to form deep and meaningful bonds, even when he tries to, and so he throws himself into his work, the thing he's so very good at. And this is all what the open world of LA is so damn good at accentuating. It is massive, but it is not varied. It's not even interesting. It feels totally real, in the most boring way possible. It is not in any way a video game space. Look at this map. Look at this footage of me driving down the road. This world feels like it exists for 1 million people to live in, not for me to play a video game inside of. Video game cities that try to depict the real world locations are usually condensed in some way. They pick all the fun bits, make the map feel real without actually being real. They are convincing worlds to explore and exist in and have enough variety and dynamism to feel kinetic and engaging. But LA Noire is literally just a portion of LA from the 1940s. It is condensed, obviously, but it does not feel condensed, and I don't think it's meant to. I'd imagine the condensing comes from fitting the map on the disc in 2011. LA Noire also already came on like 3 discs anyway, but also because it would have been literally absurd for it to take an hour to cross the map. The condensing doesn't come from a desire to distill 1940s LA into a video game world. It's far more a technical thing, because LA Noire's map is very intentionally trying to emulate reality to an exceeding degree. Driving around LA in this game is not supposed to be fun, and if it is, they fucking failed. This is so boring. I mean, you can literally choose to skip the drives if you want. You can have your partner do it. The world itself is not a part of the game. It's not mechanically important at all. Yet it's integral to the feeling. LA Noire is a linear game, but it would not feel the same were it just a set of linear cases without the world existing as a tangible space that you move through. I think the city is supposed to convey several things. First off, it's monotony. It's the humdrum of regular life and how that must hit Cole after experiencing everything he'd seen in Japan. The city is so massive, so dreary and ordinary in its presentation. The larger-than-life crimes you solve are happening amidst the most authentic-to-life city I think a video game has ever had. These hundreds of thousands of people have no idea the dark and twisted things happening in the shadows, very similar to how none of them have any clue what men like Cole must have gone through now that they're back in America. Cole's life and his experiences are always at a disconnect with the people of LA. But second of all, I think it's to show Cole's disillusionment. The world doesn't have side quests and interesting characters to meet, it literally just has cases. There are special cars to find for trophies or whatever, but they're not the point. They are supplementary video game things. The only things Cole does that are not mandatory to the main story are random crimes. Sometimes you get a call over the police radio and you can choose to go and handle that crime. The only distraction Cole Phelps gets from solving crimes is going out of his way to help out with more minor crimes. Even the landmarks you can tick off a list by finding them, various iconic LA places, come back around later down the line. Your familiarity with this city is helpful only to solving cases. There is no other meaning granted by the game. This massive, empty city sits as a backdrop to Cole's single-minded crusade to live up to the man he's decided he's supposed to be, thanks to arbitrary awards granted for experiences he'd probably rather forget. There is nothing to do in this world because Cole cannot reintegrate. As much as he thinks he has, as much as he thinks he's an upstanding citizen doing good, his humanity has already been sapped. The things that matter, those connections to others that make us who we are, have been severed by a war that took so much more than just the lives of the dead. LA is a city that is irreverent to Cole's pain, and the more cases you solve, the more you feel detached from it as a place. The city is sick, and nobody is coming to help it. These long stretches of tarmac begin to feel all the more empty, and despite just how many people line its streets, they have never felt more like disparate lives moving past each other, blind to one another's struggles, when all they really need, all Cole ever really needed, was a helping strand. Death Stranding is a game about walking. People call it a walking simulator in a derogatory way, but I don't think those people understand that that label is actually incredibly accurate. Most games labeled a walking sim are games like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, Firewatch, or Gone Home, games that are literally walking around and interacting with things. The game isn't about walking, the game is about something else and you navigate by walking. Death Stranding, though, is about walking. The mechanics, the focus, the loop itself is walking. You have to consider the weight of what you carry, the terrain, the route, your speed, your balance, and it makes the game a meticulous micromanagement that always balances itself beautifully between engaging and frustrating. But in a game about walking long distances, you need the freedom to choose where to go and how, and so the game is technically an open world game. But that feels weird, doesn't it? In the same way calling Shadow of the Colossus an open world game feels wrong, saying that about Death Stranding feels wrong also, because open world means epic expanse full of stuff to do and find. Death Stranding is not that. Death Stranding is isolating and barren and full of usually nothing. Your goal is to walk from building to building delivering cargo, and between those buildings you are alone. Sometimes you come across mules or BTs, but they're hostile, and very rarely you will catch sight of a porter or two who'll give you a hand. But the main bulk of stuff between landmarks is player created. I can't imagine what playing Death Stranding feels like offline, but I imagine it's a far lonelier experience. There's something so inspiring about getting to the edge of a cliff and finding a ladder placed by another player, maybe covered in some amount of rust. How long has it been here? And how many dropped a little like to say thank you? I came to a river on my recent playthrough and was at a point where I probably would have had to turn back if my brother hadn't built a bridge. It was this moment where I was interacting with him without an awareness. Death Stranding is a silent cooperation across a country that is so disparate, and your job is to make connections. But along the way, from major connection to major connection, you end up connecting with people who passed through this way. The tracks and evidence left by invisible pilgrims who were once who you are now. The stuff to discover in the open world of Death Stranding is the record that others stood where you stood, and you use the things that they built to make your journey that little bit easier. The physical act of walking, stumbling, enduring, it all mirrors the game's narrative themes. The gameplay becomes a direct metaphor for isolation, resilience, and rebuilding a broken world. Every obstacle is a reflection of emotional and societal collapse, and your effort to overcome them echoes the story's central mission of reconnection. It's also one of the few games that genuinely makes you feel the physicality of your journey, through weight, terrain, and repetition, and the world being open, empty, and fractured is key to that exact feeling. Your goal is to bridge the world from one coast to another, and that wouldn't work if the game had stuff to do. There are side missions, but they aren't discoverable. They're given at marked outposts and distro centers. There is nothing to discover in the world of Death Stranding. There is nothing waiting around the corner to be looted. There is simply an empty world that exists, not for you, but as a means to be passed through by you. The world is an enemy as much as a character. It is not a sandbox, it is an obstacle to overcome, and in a lot of ways a blank canvas to be created upon. You begin to feel a connection to those who came before you with every ladder climbed, bridge crossed, or sign passed. All of this is conveyed by giving you an open space but filling it with near to nothing. It's an open world that isn't for you, yet you make your own with the help of thousands of others who did the same. This blank canvas and the means with which you can paint upon it, or discover what others have painted upon it, gives meaning to the emptiness. Your loneliness starts to feel less lonely and more shared as you start to connect the strands. One of the more interesting games that handles a world designed not for you is within a larger game that is absolutely designed for you. Red Dead Redemption 2 is an open world, an action cowboy simulator, perhaps conjured up using black magic and/or pacts with the devil, and it's bursting with life. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game with plenty of stuff to do in the complete opposite way to a Ubisoft title. You stumble across things and make your own mission to hunt or discover or explore, and you're always rewarded for doing so. There are millions of different things that can happen in Red Dead Redemption 2, and the game wants you to experience them. It's one of the most incredible examples of a game that is so entirely curated and hand-placed and structured, yet feels the opposite. And that's what makes it so compelling. You cannot see the seams holding it together, you just believe it. But New Austin is not that at all. For the whole game, you're over in this part of the map, robbing banks in the Heartlands, or dealing with plantation family feuds in Lemoyne, or handling the Mafia in Saint Denis. It's all go, go, go as they flee from this area of the map, an area you cannot visit until the epilogue. New Austin feels so purposefully built to be a direct contrast to the game's main world. I mean, how could it not be on purpose? I've talked about this a bit before in my video on Starfield that sadly aged poorly. That's what I get for giving Bethesda the benefit of the doubt. But New Austin is so beautifully empty. I don't think anyone would contest that this part of Red Dead Redemption 2's world being empty is great. I don't think anyone over 14 wishes this part of the world had tons of quests and missions and random events, because that would clearly be missing the point. The epilogue of Red Dead Redemption 2 is established as slow, as calm, as the aftermath of the previous whirlwind that had built across the length of the game. The life that Arthur fought so hard to give John a chance at. New Austin is a representation of that, of the calm life that John deserved, and it being the map from the original game is no coincidence, because when John decides to go after Micah, he leads the Pinkertons to him. He accidentally instigates the first Red Dead Redemption and sets events in motion, events that lead John back to his old life, and events that lead New Austin to remain calm no longer. The calm of Red Dead Redemption 2's New Austin is a calm before the storm, and I think it creates a really powerful dramatic irony, similar to what we see in Mafia 2, because we know what John does leads to his death. Everything Arthur fought for is thrown away for the same selfish reasons Arthur ended up where he did. The story of Red Dead Redemption is a cyclical one, instigated by the folly of men and the society that condemns them for it. Calm consumed by chaos, consumed by calm, and on, always punctuated by death. New Austin allows for reflection between those 2 points in the cycle. It would not work. It would never work were it as lively and full of stuff to do as the game's main world. Wandering the empty and lifeless deserts are what make it, to me, one of the most poignant worlds in recent gaming memory, and it strangely sticks in my mind far more than the actual main world of Red Dead Redemption 2 ever did. And so, as many people would say I can't help myself but do, let's come back to Assassin's Creed. I used it as my opener because it's universally agreed upon by most people that Assassin's Creed 1 is empty, and that's the fault of the game. But is it? It's no secret that I don't think so. I discussed AC1's world in my dedicated video on that game, among plenty of other things about the game, if you can believe it. AC1's world, like all the games we've discussed in this video, is designed similarly for a specific reason. In this game, you play as Altair, a character who was born into a brotherhood of assassins and has only known one specific life. He lives for and is willing to die for this brotherhood. When you explore these cities, you are doing so for one specific purpose, the only purpose that Altair has: to kill his targets. And so, having optional quests and side stories would not make the game's story better, it would only detract from it. It would only break the focus. AC1 has no distractions because Altair has no distractions. The optional citizen missions and the viewpoints are both in service of this purpose too. The viewpoints are your points of respite, to climb above the noise and to see clarity, a central theme of the game and integral to Altair's own personal journey, to understand his place in a world he thought he had figured out. The world and the viewpoints and what you're doing are all in service of this idea. The cities exist to create tone and atmosphere, to ground you in a space and to tell stories through their set dressing. The poor district of Jerusalem is in despair, its people are struggling, there are more beggars and the streets are tight and winding. And these elements of environmental storytelling play into what you explore as you carry out your investigations, as you learn about the man left in charge of the city. But still, Altair never wavers, he has a mission to accomplish, and so you do not stray from that. Every city has 3 districts, and every district is in service of complementing the objective that particular mission has set itself the task of exploring. I like to think of each district as large open levels, ones that exist to set a tone and context for the linear mission you're tackling, very similar to the Hitman games. Everything you do is in service of that one specific mission, and the district is just a backdrop for it to enhance the experience and the fantasy of being an assassin. The world's absence of side content also creates a sense of hostility too. Altair isn't welcome in these places. The assassins are not heroes, they're looked down upon by most people, and so you play the part of an outcast, not someone helping every Tom, Dick, and Harry whose brother got trapped in another fucking bandit camp, seriously, come on guys, but instead a man who must pass through an oppressive space, unseen, to carry out their gruesome yet necessary job. This creates a real sense of purpose to your movement. You know detection is pretty easy. You can get spotted for doing the wrong thing at any time, and so something as basic as getting around feels thoughtful because of this. And so the gameplay, the actual substance, is navigation of a space, which in subsequent entries became simply a means to an end as they littered their maps with garbage. The kingdom too, a huge open space for you to visit between cities, is also totally empty. It is literally a liminal space that exists to convey distance and separation, to show both how removed the lives of these regular people are from the events unfolding in the crowded and smothering cities, while also showing the extent of the Holy War, the armies and their camps, the patrols, they're everywhere, and it works as deeper and greater subtle environmental storytelling. My biggest issue with Assassin's Creed 1's world is that it compromises on itself with the Flags and Templars, both of which act as traditional collectibles, which are also tracked. And while this is the same as how LA Noire handles its cars or how Mafia 2 handles its, AC1 is hampered by the fact that it also has 536 games that succeed it. Nobody is playing Assassin's Creed 1 in a vacuum, and those games are very, very clearly open world games, derogatory. And so the existence of those and the collectibles in Assassin's Creed 1 teach the player to explore and find stuff, and the rewards being so nothing often lead people to think, why isn't there more stuff? Rather than, why is this stuff even here, which is the correct position. Assassin's Creed 1's world would be better without the Flags and Templar collectibles confusing its specific and focused presentation. It's why Shadow of the Colossus works so well, because there is literally nothing to find other than those lizards and fruit that are totally married to the singular focus of the game. The Flags and Templars were also added into the game at a very late stage because Yves Guillemot's kid played and said, "It was boring and there was nothing to do." Sorry, what the fuck, hang on. How do I do it in a French accent? "It was boring and there was nothing to do." Which is the second biggest crime the Guillemot family has committed. You're on my list, kid. You're old enough to fight me now. Although, we're kind of getting completely off topic here.
And so, what am I even trying to say here? What is the purpose of this video? Essay? Because an essay has to be arguing a thesis, right? And while I've told you games like this exist, I've given the evidence and explained why it works, what is the actual point though? I suppose the greater point isn't actually about the title or the topic, it's more a means through which to view games that might alter how you interact with them critically. Sometimes people are all too concerned with how a game functions as a product, as content, as stuff to be consumed for the money you paid, and look, there's value in those types of videos. Things cost money. A lot of money these days, I get that angle. But perhaps the value isn't in how much stuff there is, but instead how it uses the stuff that is there. I'm sure Far Cry 6 had tons of bandit camps to clear and cars to drive and maybe a few weed farms to burn, but did it hold as much meaning as Shadow of the Colossus? Will you remember it as fondly as people do Mafia 2? I feel more and more these days that the value of a game is in how long it rattles around in my brain, how long it lives in my heart, more than how long I actually spent playing it, and how much stuff I did during that time. And this isn't to say conventional open-world games are bad and wrong and we need every game to be empty. There are plenty of open-world games that are all about doing stuff that I adore. The companion video to this one, exclusively on Patreon, is all about that, a collection of open worlds that are made for you and that are done with care and meaning. But I think it's worth thinking about how we think about games and their intentions, and that's what I wanted to do with this video. Open worlds and how they're utilized in a tonal, atmospheric, and thematic sense are only one of many decisions that go into creating games, and looking at them from this perspective I think allows for a far greater understanding of them as an art form, rather than as just a means for you to have a bit of fun after school or work. This isn't to tear you down for simply enjoying things, that's not what I'm trying to do, but I think critical discussion around games is often focused too heavily on the wrong things. I said at the top of the video that Shadow of the Colossus is an obviously artsy game, and that stops people from criticizing its emptiness. On the whole, obviously, some people on TikTok absolutely hate it, but what makes it more valid in its emptiness than any other game that exists? Why does critical discussion operate on a different set of rules? Oh, that one is art, so it's good that it's empty, but this one isn't art, so it's just bad that it's empty. The truth is that all video games are art, from Call of Duty to the Outer Wilds. None of the games I discussed today would be better with more stuff. The artistic meaning would only be more lost in favor of content, and in an age when open worlds still dominate the gaming landscape, I think it's a loss to not have more worlds that exist not for your own personal satisfaction or gratification, but instead to convey meaning, emotional value, and uncompromising focus. Games with open worlds that are not open world games. The office is nearly done. What do you think? It's not quite there, but I'm feeling quite at home. I feel like it's quite usable. Everything's coming together really nice. If you've been at streams, you'll have already seen parts of it. I'm trying to get back to streaming, by the way. I'm currently doing Sekiro, so drop me a follow on Twitch if you feel like it. Or I also stream on my second channel on YouTube too, if you don't want to go to Twitch. So that's in the description too. It's LazerzBoy. Feel free to check it out. I hope you enjoyed this video. This one's been rattling around in my brain for a very long time now. And I've been working on it since the start of the year, like actually properly working on it. Although I think I started the script last year. It's just one of those ones that sometimes they're a bit of a slow burn. It's like it's an idea I have, we'll get around to it, like the same as sort of the Homesick one or the Bolt video or whatever. Which, by the way, on the off chance that this video blows up, which realistically it won't, but on the off chance that it does, go and check out my video on homesickness. I think if you enjoyed this, you'll enjoy that even more, because I think that would be something you'd probably be down with. It's my favorite video I've ever made. It's a very personal one. That the people that did watch it, although it didn't like blow up or anything, really liked it. So that's the one thing people always talk to me about in person and online or through messages or whatever. That is the one video that people always bring up, which means a lot to me. But I hope this one does something for you. It's not as personal or as vulnerable or even as deep, really, but it's a topic that I've always sort of thought about. And I think it also kind of works as a bit of a precursor to a potential AC1 remake and the discourse that would follow. Remakes are a whole other thing, which is another critical angle I would love to tackle at some point, which I'll probably do through the lens of Final Fantasy VII when part 3 of the remake comes out, but that's a whole separate thing. I've got a video on Patreon about remakes as well, which I think is actually a really good one. But this kind of is, I guess I wanted to sort of plant some seeds of like how you think about AC1 and other games like it, so that I can kind of, I guess, draw from that, or at least establish a basis somewhere through my work. You can kind of follow the trail of breadcrumbs or whatever, when an AC1 remake inevitably exists, and I have to argue that it's bad, despite the fact that it has a million side quests, which is also, good. That's objectively good. A game with lots and lots of side quests is objectively better than one without. That we know. That's a fact, proven fact. And a big thank you to everybody on Patreon, as always. It means the world to me that I can spend as long as I do on stuff. I mean, I won't lie. I have been, it's been financially tough time recently, and that is my fault. It's not your fault. The insane amount of support I have on Patreon is unbelievable. You're keeping me afloat. The reason that it's been tougher is because I'm not fucking posting anything, so I don't have the YouTube revenue that I would normally have. That's all kind of gone. I'm kind of just living off Patreon. That's not true. I'm not living off Patreon. I'm fine. I said, what the fuck am I doing? All I'm saying is I need to start posting more. It was just me trying to say I need to start posting more. It started to sound like I'm begging for money. What I actually was trying to say was that I need to post more stuff. I need to get back to making fucking videos. But also for like creative fulfillment reasons too. I miss making stuff. So I'm glad this is out. Maybe the Kingdom Come video will see the light of day one day. I've started writing a script for Mafia: The Old Country, because the discourse around that game has been so bizarre, and I think I have a unique perspective where, like, I think that game is in serious need of criticism, but all of the criticism is wrong and bad faith and stupid. And it feels like there's two camps. It's like there's people that are like tearing into it for like stupid reasons that just are not valid criticism. It's just dumb like clickbait shit. And then everyone that is like, no, that's dumb, defends the game dies on the hill of defending Mafia: The Old Country. And it feels like no one is doing good faith criticism. At least not that I can find. Maybe Skill Up's video was good. I don't know. I haven't watched that. But I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people that are either like, no, you guys are wrong for criticizing it, it's actually great, and people that are like, this game fucking sucks for like a bunch of dumb reasons, whereas I kind of just sit in the middle where I'm like, no, the game is kind of a bit shit, but for actual valid reasons, and I would like to, explore that, which is kind of where a lot of my videos come from, is seeing the general discourse and being like, oh, everyone's wrong, and then I make a thing. But I don't know. It's weird. I have after playing a lot, because Mafia: The Old Country's kind of just been living in my head since I played it, and I've kind of got like so many thoughts on it, and I've like developed this weird soft spot for it, even though I don't think it's that good. It's better than Mafia 1 Remake. That game is a piece of shit. Mafia 1 Remake is a piece of shit. Well, that's a bit over the top, but it wasn't very good. Which a lot of people really like that for some reason. It's weird. You know what? It's a weird one, and I find this happens all the time. Is people latch on to identity of thing more than quality of thing, right? Like you look at Assassin's Creed, for example. I'm kind of just going on a tangent here. I don't know. You can click off if you want. Unity is a bad video game. Okay, it is mechanically shallow. It is still buggy today. The patches did not fix it. The story is written like fucking shit. It's just not a good game. But people latch onto that more than, like, say, Black Flag, for example. Or people will latch onto Mirage, like, more than, like, a Black Flag. Because they're like, oh, but this one is about assassins, so that makes it good immediately. But it's like, no, just because it's got a guy with a hood, that's not what makes Assassin's Creed good. AC1 wasn't good because of random iconography and shit. It was good because it was well written, well mechanically constructed and structured, and had great focus and artistic direction. Like, all of those things were important to what made it good. It wasn't the iconography. And it's like, I think that Black Flag and, Valhalla is, to an extent, I think Valhalla is a heavily flawed game, but, is better than something like a Unity, which, yes, Unity looks like Assassin's Creed, but it's still a shit video game. Like, it's not the same thing. And I think that's kind of what I'm seeing with Mafia, is that people are like, oh, Mafia 1 Remake was so good, but Old Country's bad. Like, Old Country's a better video game than Mafia 1 Remake was. Just because Mafia 1 Remake looks like a Mafia game, because it has Italian-American dudes in suits in a city that kind of looks like New York/Chicago or whatever. Like, is that all you need? It doesn't have to actually be good. It just needs to look like the thing that you like. Whereas Old Country, it's very different. It's set in a different place. It's got very different vibes. It's a totally different sort of setting to what we're used to from a game like that. But it is a better game. I don't know. People are probably going to get mad at me for this. I don't know, man. I don't know. I have my reasons, and I'll try and explore them in the video. Thank you as well to my producers and master assassins, who I don't have the names of, as always, because by the time I've finished editing this and the Patreon video, which, by the way, there is a Patreon video, like I said in it, which is a companion to this, which is on Open World Games That Are For You, so give that a look if you want. Why do I ramble for so long during these? Just do the names. Thank you to Adam Barnes, Arenathon, Cabbage, Commenter25, Damien, the Not So Orange Gnome, Dink, GeekFam, Johnny Nelson, Luke Pierce, Rolands, Tyler Half, and Zeta. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Sweet and thank you. Yeah, I don't know why I ramble for so long during these outros. I found recently, though, after that AC2 video, that a lot of people do actually watch the whole outro, so that's good to know. I honestly thought I was rambling to just, like, 2 people, but it turns out there's quite a few, actually, that just sit and listen to me talk at the end of these. So I appreciate that. I mean, if you do like a lot of that, then maybe check out Patreon, where I do a lot of rambling about a lot of things. I post so much shit over there all the time. 1 video a month at least, as well as commentaries on new things and update posts and early access and companion videos when I do post a project on YouTube. So, you know, plenty of stuff over there. Lots of good things. But yeah, I think that's it. I won't ramble anymore. I'm going to stop yapping, and I'll see you soon. Like I said, a few projects, a few things. Hopefully, I'll be a bit more consistent. Now that the office is done and we're sort of settled in after the move, hopefully I'll be a bit more consistent. I can't promise anything, because I am just really struggling with motivation recently. Don't really know why, but hopefully I sort of get back on it and start posting stuff again. Because, you know, I do love doing this. I just, for some reason, I've been struggling recently to just find the motivation to bother. Even though in my head I want to. It's a weird thing, because actually I do have the motivation. It's like I have the creativity is always there. I want to make things. I just don't have the motivation to move my body to do it. I don't really know why. Hopefully we'll get sorted. Anyway, much love. See you soon. Bye-bye.